Hello and welcome everyone. We are kicking off the 9th Informed Cities Forum, Repurpose, Recharge, Rethink, Heritage and E-Mobility at the Crossroads. We are coming to you live from Freiburg, Germany. We have participants joining us from all over Europe, even all over the world. Thank you so much for being with us. And we have 3 exciting days planned for you. The Informed Cities Forum are an ICLEI Europe conference series. This is the 9th edition of this very exciting and unique format. And we will be talking a bit more about this in a second. The conference is co-hosted by OpenHeritage and GreenCharge, 2 Horizon projects. OpenHeritage identifies and tests best practices of adaptive heritage reuse in Europe. And GreenCharge, on the other hand, looks at electric vehicles running on green energy. How these 2 fit together will come up in a moment. Now, my name is Jasmin Miah. I work for ICLEI Europe. And I'm looking forward to moderating this opening session where we will talk about e-mobility and heritage at the Crossroads. You will meet lots of my colleagues throughout the conference, and we have some great sessions planned for you. So let's briefly look at the program. We have labeled sessions according to their focus. So there is a mobility avenue, a heritage boulevard, and the Crossroads, which are sessions that specifically address both topics. After this opening session, we will talk about the new European Bauhaus initiative, and in the afternoon, we will have 2 sessions on the mobility avenue, one looking at the use of data, and the other one presenting some great examples on repurposing mobility. We will then start the second day with examples of what heritage communities have been learning from the pandemic, followed by a session on the European Year of Rail, where we will actually be taking you on a bit of a virtual tour to some great places in Europe. And then in the afternoon, we will look at the future of EVs and what promises the industry might be making and which of these we could potentially fall in love with. And then on the third day, we will address the issue of energy sources for EVs and accessibility of cultural heritage. We will close our conference with a panel discussion on the future of our cities, sort of answering the question, where are we going after all of this? And then each day during lunchtime, we will have a networking carousel. This sort of works like a virtual speed dating tool. So as soon as you enter the session, you will be randomly matched with another participant for a very short one-to-one virtual encounter. And then if you wish, you can continue that conversation via the conference platform or, of course, outside of it. So we highly encourage you to join these because being online doesn't have to mean that we can't network and meet interesting people, so make use of this opportunity. You can find a detailed program on the platform, including descriptions for each session, as well as other information. So speaking of, a couple of housekeeping rules for the platform. I know that most of you will probably be very familiar with such platforms now that we're unfortunately 1.5 years into the pandemic. Nonetheless, I want to give you a couple of notes on our platform, the one that we're using. So once you check in, you get to a landing page where you can click on the conference program and where you can see the session as well as the day of the event. And if you then add them to your favorites, they will show up in your personal program as well. And to enter a session, you click on Enter the Talk, but I assume everyone who's with us right now was able to figure that out. Okay, during the sessions, you can provide feedback. You can do that with some emojis. They're at the bottom of your screen, right there at the bottom. So please do that. And most importantly, you can provide feedback via the chat. What are you thinking? Do you have any questions? And we particularly want you to use that to discuss things and talk with other participants. What are they thinking of it? Ask them. Should you have any technical issues, please put them in the chat, and we will address them ASAP. We will also be posting in the chat in some sessions links to Mentimeter. Most of you will also know Mentimeter by now, but for those of you who don't, it is a tool that enables you to vote or provide other forms of feedback. So we will actually be using this later in. And whenever it's announced, simply go to the chat and follow the instructions that my colleagues are posting there. So it's fairly self-explanatory. Lastly, we are, of course, active on social media. So you can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you post anything, feel free to tag us. and use the hashtag informed cities so we and all the other participants can see what you're sharing and potentially join the discussion. If you use the hashtag informed cities on Instagram or TikTok or whatever you're using, we will also find it and share that as well, so please don't be shy. Okay, so now that this is all settled, let's get started and sort of address the elephant in the room. Why are we doing a conference that addresses both e-mobility and heritage at the same time? Because for most people, these are not the, let's say, most obvious choices when it comes to merging two topics for a conference. And the short answer is that's exactly why we're doing it. This is what Informed Cities is about. And maybe it's not even that weird. Now, in this session and throughout the conference, we will obviously talk about it, but I want to give you a bit of a teaser of why these topics might have more in common than many of us initially think. So for one, there can be a topical alignment. Heritage and culture do not exist without context, and neither does mobility. There can be the question of access, of urban street patterns, of roads and paths that play a role. Cultural impacts of transport choices can be interesting. Social problems can affect both topics, and of course, vice versa. Or maybe there's conservation problems and aesthetics. So for example, what do we do when we want charging stations in front of an old building that is protected and where the view might be obstructed? Or maybe we also need to ask the simple question, what aspects of our mobility are considered heritage? Are cars, at least to some of us, part of our culture? And then there can be more abstract aspects that could be addressed. So how do experts, how do practitioners in these two bubbles work with city administrations? What roles do they play in urban planning? What financing instruments are there? What can the two learn from each other in terms of processes, problem solving, participation, and more? And these are just some examples to encourage you to open up your minds. I hope you already started thinking about that a bit when you sign up for this conference. Many experts will let you know what they think throughout the conference, and we hope you will then too, in the chat, in the discussions, and by talking to other participants and to us. So this is definitely not entirely crazy to bring these two together. At least that's what we think. And Informed Cities is really the perfect place to be doing this. The Informed Cities Initiative is a European initiative driven by ICLEI, and it aims to bridge the gap between research, policy making, and action in sustainable development at and for the local level. And to hear more about why Informed Cities is a great place to bring these two worlds together and what makes this series so special, we are going to two of my colleagues. We are going to Stefan Kuhn. He's ICLEI's regional director and head of the governance and social innovation team, and Stephania Xydia, who is an officer in the governance and social innovation team. And she's an expert in cultural heritage. And they're having a chat in downtown Freiburg. So Stephania, hello to you, and let's hear what Informed Cities is all about.
Thank you, Jasmin. Good morning from Europaplatz, the square of Europe here in Freiburg. We're standing in front of ICLEI European Secretariat at an urban crossroads, an intersection where we can see how Germany's green capital is integrating both the restoration and reuse of its cultural heritage with a bold shift to electric mobility. We're here with Stefan Kuhn, regional director at ICLEI Europe, who's been involved in Informed Cities for since the very first edition, back in 2009. So, Stefan, tell us, what is so special about Informed Cities Fora?
Well, it's a convention of urban thinkers, of urban dreamers, of people who are called city makers nowadays, people from different camps. And our idea was to bring them together because usually these people do not speak the same language. They have to learn from each other, but they can also inspire each other. And what we did is we put them into very peculiar venues. Usually we had fora in a castle, in an old church, in an old subway station, and things like that, in a theater. And we also tried to not just show PowerPoint presentations all the time, but we wanted to get people into interaction, into exchange with each other, and make them interact, even do things at the conference itself.
Okay, so it's rather an unconference, right? So how could this concept be adapted to an online format this year?
That was a challenge indeed. And what we needed to do is we had to basically go back to the roots, to remember how the whole thing started, and that we wanted to really bring people together who are speaking different languages, who are coming from different topical areas, because it was not so easy to bring the fancy venue and the fancy methods into an online setting. You can still expect some really interesting formats that we have for you in the Informed Cities Forum this year. We'll have a networking carousel, and we'll have a lot of different formats that we've tried to bring the interactivity into an online format. But I guess the key resource that we have this year is the diversity of our participants.
Speaking of participants, we're bringing together this year two worlds, the cultural heritage side and the electric mobilities. This is a rather peculiar, exciting, but quite strange combination. So what are the main benefits that you are expecting from this experiment?
Well, it's an experiment, as you say. And well, if you look at the climate crisis and the many other crises that we've been talking about for so many years, we need systemic change, not just a few more nice projects. And in order to get to systemic change, we need to have some unconventional approaches and solutions. And our idea is these solutions can best emerge if people come together who are having very different perspectives. And if we bring them together to one table, these new and unconventional solutions can come to the table, they can emerge and can be discussed. And if you look at the European Green Deal, for example, this is a very good example how integrated we need to think in order to make our cities climate neutral. And we want to bring the EU Green Deal into the cities, into the urban sphere, into the people, or to the people. And well, a deal usually needs at least two parties to make the deal a deal. And I'm really excited to see what can happen if we want to transform the mobility system and we want to transform our culture. If we bring these two arenas together, what kind of deals could probably emerge here?
So looking for some interesting connection of dots, connection of worlds, and bridging different languages. So back to you, Jasmin, back to the studio. Let's have a great start to this 9th Informed Cities Forum.
Thank you, Stephania and Stefan. And yes, let's indeed. And I think at this point, it's good if we talk about the projects that I also mentioned in the beginning, GreenCharge and OpenHeritage. They are the hosts for this conference. And I'm joined today by Jacqueline Floch and Hanna Szemzö. Jacqueline's here with me in person. Hanna is with us virtually. Welcome to you both. Jacqueline is a senior scientist at Sintef Digital in Norway. She performs research on digital inclusion and investigates innovative ways to apply and develop digital approaches towards user empowerment and inclusive societies. And she's the coordinator for GreenCharge. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi.
And Hanna is one of the managing directors of the European Metropolitan Research Institute in Budapest, Hungary. She has extensive experience in research and consultancy in the fields of urban development, social inclusion, energy efficiency, welfare, and governance analysis. And she's the coordinator of OpenHeritage. Welcome, Hanna.
Hello. Thank you. Very, very nice to see you both.
You too. So I want to ask you both now the sort of obvious question as well. What did you think when we said we wanted to combine the topics of electric mobility and heritage in one conference and address both projects at the same time? Jacqueline, did you think this was a good idea?
I'm not sure it's a good idea. We will see this 3 days. I found it surprising, but also I think that everything is some way connected. We can find connection. We should find connection between things, as you mentioned some at the beginning. And for me, the most obvious maybe was how we will visit sites, cultural sites in the future. How will we travel to those sites? So I hope we are not back to the pre-pandemic time where we had a lot of mass tourism or everybody was traveling around. I hope we will be able to find new transportation modes and to go to visit the site, because I hope we will still be able to do that. So another connection I also see is that we cannot live as we are living now. We have to. We are a transition to save the planet, and so we have to plan what is going to happen now. And I think that the best way to understand or to plan is actually to understand where do we come from, what was our past, what is our heritage, and I think it's interesting to look at the story of our cities, the story of transportation, because we see our city have grown, and this is thanks to the new developments that we have had in transportation modes, because we are able to actually transport quicker. We are able to produce outside of our cities. Before we had production in our cities. I was in Strasbourg newly, and I see all the streets, they have the name of different craftsmen. Here you have people making shoes and making clothes, and it's but now everything is produced outside. Should we change also this? Because mobility is not something that we don't move just to move. We move because we have to go to work. We move because we have to meet a family. We move. Yeah, this is the reason of moving. So maybe we can also reduce this kind of moving by having things closer to us. I don't know. This is possibility.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And another connection I also see is actually to make change is not easy. It's very difficult to change habits. And I think to achieve that is that we need strong communities that actually understand, support each other. In the case of e-mobility, I think it's not possible that we are going to replace every body car with an electric car. It does not scale. I think the answer is sharing. We have to share. And people, for sharing, they actually need to trust each other.
Yeah.
And trust, actually, to get this trust, we need to build something strong between us, so communities. And I understand that OpenHeritage is it's about that.
Say, this is now a good way to bring in Hanna, because communities do indeed play a very big role in OpenHeritage. Hanna, what did you think when we suggested this? Did you think we were crazy, and do you seem similar things as Jacqueline?
I like you way too much to think that, but my motto is never say never. It was a surprising, it was a surprising combination, and I think it's okay to acknowledge that. But something that I've been working, I'm a sociologist, but I work in a very interdisciplinary team in OpenHeritage. And this is something that was one of the very important experiences for me during this trip of being the coordinator, is that thinking in silos never helps, and I regarded this as an opportunity to connect the dots. I think some dots are, some dots are easily connected. Something that also Jacqueline says, accessibility is important both for mobility and for adaptive heritage reuse purposes. Some dots are maybe harder to connect. Electricity is a bit more difficult to pass into picture, but I would like to emphasize not the end product, but the process. So thinking together, coming together, and expanding together. That was important for me, and I think this conference, that's why I really like, at the end, this combination.
Yes, I do very much hope we'll talk about these processes and how the different sectors approach them. But maybe before we go into more detail, let's look at the projects that you two are actually representing. We have a video for both of them, and maybe let's start with the GreenCharge project and introduce our audience to what that project is about.
Or share cars and scooters without concerns about vehicle availability or charging opportunities in a well-functioning and financially viable ecosystem of users, service providers, and authorities. Why isn't this a reality today? Firstly, many European citizens hold off purchasing an electric vehicle because they feel the current availability of public charging infrastructure is way too limited. But at the same time, charging providers hesitate to invest in charging infrastructure because not enough people are buying electric vehicles. Lastly, having everyone charging their electric vehicles at the same time would put a big strain on the electricity network, both at a national as well as a local level, that would require major investments to upgrade. The European-funded project GreenCharge is contributing to change this reality and is doing so by implementing measures such as smart energy management. GreenCharge is stimulating the use of green energy by combining energy from the grid with locally produced solar power and storing surplus energy in batteries. The project aims to reduce the need for grid investments by balancing energy demand and supply. This is achieved through load shifting and peak shaving that involves anticipating and managing overall demand to eliminate short-term demand spikes. The smart energy management strategy being implemented consists of combining the charging needs specified by the different users of the system with predictive information on energy consumption and estimated solar power production within the next 24 hours, resulting in the generation of an optimal electric vehicle charging plan. With GreenCharge, electric vehicles maximize the usage of local solar energy, benefiting from lower-priced power. Grid capacity is not exceeded, avoiding investments in its upgrade. All in all, the use of the charging infrastructure is optimized at the same time that users are provided green and reliable energy. The project provides a smooth charging experience by enabling payment through a global roaming platform, facilitating the reservation of charging stations and allowing flexible charging. It is supporting the fleet management of electric cars and light vehicles, and designing new business models, including the allocation of various incentives for sharing energy, and the implementation of a fair priority system within neighborhoods that rewards user flexibility with lower prices. GreenCharge provides knowledge and guidelines on how cities can establish sustainable urban mobility plans. For example, in Oslo, it supports housing cooperatives to make more efficient use of locally produced green energy. In Bremen, it is promoting the use of electric cars in car-sharing systems, and in Barcelona, it is enabling a shift away from fossil fuel-powered motorbikes, scooters and cars towards electric ones, including light electric vehicles such as e-bikes. GreenCharge, sustainable mobility through innovative business models, technologies and guidelines.
All right, Jacqueline. Now, this project was started a couple of years ago, and things have happened since then. Mm-hmm. Can you maybe brief our audience on what that was?
Yeah. Actually, when I look at that video, I think it's like a bit science fiction. It's everything is running very smooth, but in reality, it's not as smooth as it's showed here, because actually it's GreenCharge is a technology project, as you can see, and we integrate technology, and it's not so easy to integrate things because we have to deal with different domains. We deal with transportation domain, of course, mobility. We deal with energy domain, production, distribution, management. Mm-hmm. And we also deal with buildings because we have this concept of energy smart energy neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. So, but the thing is that we have to integrate systems from those different domains, and interfaces are not standardized. So we have a big problem here, and it's like we are building a puzzle and the pieces don't fit together. Mm-hmm. So we have actually to cut the pieces again, or to put them in some envelope. So this is one difficulty we have. And I told that the sharing concept is very important for e-mobility. And here we have illustrated different kind of sharing. We are sharing vehicles, light vehicles or cars, and we are sharing energy. Well, we try to reduce strain on the network. So people who are not in a hurry to charge, they can postpone. So this is a concept of sharing charging. This is important. but to understand, we don't see so many people on this video. We see a lot of technology and cars. As I say, it's important to change the mindset of people, but I think it's very important to change this mindset that we have data, that we have empirics, that we can show, we can understand how do people behave and what is it possible to change to get the best benefit of it.
And can GreenCharge do that?
I think we have a problem because we have the pandemic, so we were not able to collect as many data during the project as we expected. But we have developed KPIs, so indicators, in order to calculate, to calculate different things, and this can be used further. I hope it will be exploited by other cities in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
And has there been any concrete successes that you can also share with the participants? Or are we mainly looking at also technological problems that GreenCharge had to solve?
I don't know. There have many success. I am afraid to name. I'm afraid to name one because then, as a partner, we'll not be very happy. But I could say that actually, I told you about the problem of integrating things together. And then we have developed a reference architecture that show what are the concerns of the different stakeholders. There are very many stakeholders, what they can benefit from this approach, what kind of interface we need to integrate system. And this is, I think, a big step.
Okay.
Well, and then you have to think that GreenCharge is just a drop in the ocean. We are a little project and we have to...
All contributing those to the bigger cause.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've many more sessions that will further go into detail of what GreenCharge does in some of the cases that we've heard from in this video. But yeah, we do, of course, also have a video from OpenHeritage to learn more about that project. Let's roll that clip.
My name is Hanna Szemzö. I'm a sociologist working at Metropolitan Research Institute. It means that we work on sites where not much money flows in. So no one would travel to Hungary or to Poland or to Germany for this, but that provide the backbone of the community. And that's also heritage, and especially important socially. And for me, as a sociologist, heritage is not only a value in itself, but also a tool that I see that helps to improve communities, helps to build them, and helps to regenerate them. It's entitled Open Heritage, but it wants to mean that we are open to involve communities and people, and we open regarding the definition of what constitutes heritage. The main goal is to try to come up with a solution that creates, that helps local communities to take control of their heritage site and to find an appropriate reuse for them. Most important in the lab side, but also in the observatory side, we can energize thinking and local community life, and this thinking can live on.
All right, now Hanna, we've already heard a bit from you during that video, but of course I want a bit more now as well. So what do you want to tell participants about OpenHeritage since that project started, which was also a couple of years ago and will also be ending soon?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting, it's a trip on memory lane. It's to see if this video was shot at our first consortium meeting. And I have to say, I still agree with James. And I actually very positive that we are working towards achieving these aims. We had a few setbacks. One's called, a COVID-19 pandemic.
I've heard of that.
I've been thinking that no risk management plan, however well you do it, can prepare for that. And it hits very hard a project like OpenHeritage because working on site is at the heart and soul of the project. At the same time, I do need to say that we've learned a lot. So we haven't changed the aims, and I think we will deliver the aims. Really understood both because of the pandemic, but also really working online or on site, and also working in the observatory cases, the importance of time. I think this is, I mean, wherever I go nowadays, I keep repeating myself, but I cannot get enough of this concept. Time lies at the heart of, and the time not, you know, as a philosophical concept, but as a giving you space for trial and error. This is a problem that I nowadays see, that we do, even because we work in projects. So we are geared for the best results. I mean, when you go in a conference, you don't really propagate your failures. That's not what you do. But you say, basically start from point A, and then your way to point B seems a seamless travel with no or with minor difficulties, where you manage the risks very nicely, and the end result is perfect. But this is not how real life works. This is not how a normal person's life works. This is not how labs works. This is not how science works. So in this very awkward sense, I'm a bit grateful for the pandemic, because it allowed me as a coordinator and allowed us as a project to really put the emphasis more in these difficulties. So we have also learned, and that's going to be commonplace, the communities are complicated entities. We still think that they are the basis, but you know, who to involve and how to involve is difficult. But what I think we have learned a lot about the mechanisms, how it's done. We have been working how to transfer good knowledge, and we've learned a lot about policies, how different policy levels, you know, from very low ones up to the EU, can support this process. So I would say that we have a lot of small achievements, but there is a sociologist called Robert Merton, who is one of my favorites, and he always goes for middle range theories. I'm very happy, since I'm going to like paraphrase him a bit. He's much smarter than, used to be much smarter. He's passed away than I am, but I think middle range results are the best results, because you don't want grand results, you want small steps. And actually, looking back at the video, I have this very good feeling that we are on track to do this. So I think we will help. It's just as Jacqueline said, we are putting the puzzles together, but our puzzles are methods, and our puzzles are toolbox for, and because it's not obviously it's a less technologically driven project than GreenCharge, although we do try to focus a bit on quite a lot on digital engagement. And we have learned quite a lot how, again, this is something we do know that this is crucial, but turning an offline community into an online one is not simple. And this is something we also need to face. And it's also important to know that depending on your target group, if you have an urban high target group, it's very easy to create an online community. If you are working with a more rural one, then you might want to consider, you know, having more bit of a balance. So these are the small learnings we are taking. And I think we have, and still our aim is to create models for a sustainable management model for all these sites. It wasn't said in the interview, but they are specifically, we call them marginalized sites, either socially or geographically or both. Yeah. And we want to create things that help them to sustain. One last thought that also came as a learning for us, that besides methods, how to engage your community, you need to be very sharp on the finances. That when you work with communities, you tend to forget about them. But when you, when you write the proposals, but when you actually start to work with them, then you realize that either form, grant, some kind of, some kind of money from the local government, something that also activities that create revenues need to be planned in from the very first, from the beginning of the project.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you overall are very optimistic about OpenHeritage, despite some of the setbacks. And I think it's true that we always focus on the positive, even though I guess others can learn even more from some of the struggles. So it's interesting also what you see about time and the time restriction we always have in these projects, and we only think in them. And you both mentioned communities, so I already see some overlap as well with the projects. Hanna, can you maybe just give a little teaser, because we will have a session about this tomorrow about how these communities, where of course in-person interaction is so important, and how with the communities that you work with in Open Heritage, how they dealt with the pandemic, so people know what they can hear more about also tomorrow.
Oh, that will be a wonderful session led by my colleague Andrea. But you will actually learn that it's that it froze for a moment because everyone freezes, and then they basically had to start coming up with ways to, there are two things. One, you do need to deliver because you're a project participant. That's, in this case, that's actually quite an important push, because otherwise life, again, takes, if you do have a site where things are going on anyways, these are, with the exception of one lab, we have 6 labs together, 5 labs have been going on for a longer period than Open Heritage, which is actually an added advantage. So they had other aims besides being part of the project. It means that they had actually more flexibility to relax and cut back and think a bit more. What we do see as actually, and that you will learn more about it tomorrow,
just a final thought on that.
But it was a final. Okay, that the institution. Okay, then please tune in tomorrow. Okay, it will be a wonderful session. So and learn about how.
Okay, well then, thank you both on giving us a bit more details on the projects. And now that that our participants, that you have heard a bit more about them and the topics that will be discussed, we would like to hear from you. So this is the point when we will go to Mentimeter, and my colleague will be posting that link in the chat right now. So please go there and let us know what you think. And we have the following question for you. And I hope, that you maybe already thought about this a bit beforehand. So when you think of culture, when you think of heritage, and when you think of e-mobility or mobility in general, what do you think they could have in common? It can be concrete things, abstract things. Do you even see something? What do you think these two have that could warrant bringing them together like this, like we're doing today and in the next 2 days? So please share your thoughts. And while you do that, so you have some time to think about this, I want to ask you, Jacqueline and Hanna, the same question. I'm asking for a fairly short answer. So can you, you already mentioned this a bit, both of you, can you tell me, what do you think, where do these topics play a role in your work? So Jacqueline, I'm going to start with you. Where does heritage play a role in your work?
I already named different things, but okay, the most important, I think, is to learn. I am concerned by inclusion, by user employment, and I think to get this employment, you need to give knowledge to people. So I think that we can give knowledge about how we moved earlier, what has happened when we change our mobility patterns. And I don't think that the past was best. I don't say that, but we can learn from it. Yeah,
definitely. All right, perfect. And then Hanna, same question to you, just the other way around. Where do you see e-mobility or mobility playing a role in your work?
I mean, definitely accessibility. I mean, you do need to get there. Even if I'm a sociologist, so it's not only adaptive heritage reuse that I work with. But when I think about urban development, and I work quite a lot, to increase social mobility, not just a real, but social one, and decrease social differences, mobility generally lies at the heart. It's the question is how electricity comes in, and I think that's a more complicated one because of the big income and social differences within Europe, but I think that would merit a different session to talk about that. So.
And interesting that you both say the same thing. Real quick, Jacqueline.
Yeah, also thinking about communities and including everybody. So accessibility in another sense, that actually you don't only include a part of the population, but you are able to reach everybody. Yeah. This is also something important.
True points. And both of these will be addressed in some of the other sessions we have during this conference. So perfect. And now that you in the audience, the participants, have had some time, I hope you felt creative. Let's see what you've come up with on Mentimeter. Be sharing this in a second. There we go. Oh, see, accessibility also in the center. We have community, sustainability, habits, inclusion, innovation, of course, and then also more concrete things like water, design, trains. Yeah, but I think this in a lot of ways reflects what the two of you have been talking about. We will be keeping this. We're also going to keep this open for another couple of seconds, so you can, if you have more ideas, put them in, and then we might come back to this in the end when we close this conference as well, to see if we did address everything that the participants were expecting. Okay, well, Hanna and Jacqueline, I will come back to you again in the end, but now I want to bring another person into the conversation. Because we also have Quintens with us here today. Joke is the former deputy mayor of Genk in Belgium, and she's the founder of Wetopia, Making Cities Together, and Living Lab Moving Marseille. Joke creates locally neutral spaces to set up new alliances to develop collaborative projects and interventions that start from the context of the city and the potential of the place or neighborhood they work in. Hello, Joke.
Hey, Jasmin, so glad to be there.
We're excited to have you with us. I hope you've been following a bit the conversation that I've had with Jacqueline and Hanna. And
yes,
I want to now talk to you a bit as an expert also on bringing people together from these different spheres about how we can actually do this. And they've said it already. We hear a lot the term silos. So thinking outside of silos, working outside of silos. And it's maybe even a bit overused, let's be honest. What does that actually mean? What does it mean when we say thinking outside of silos or working outside of silos?
Yeah, I would say not only thinking, but also doing outside of silos, but I'm sure you all agree on that. For me, it means integration. And I already heard this word also with Stefan in the beginning. I, by the way, want to say I was there. I completely agree with him. I was there in Rotterdam and in Dresden. So I think Informed Cities is really already a great example through the years of doing this, of combining and integrating this city making and city work. For me, it's I call it the whole system approach, and it's also the approach we want to use in Wetopia. And it's about cross-pollinating work, mixing different universes. It's all I heard already, so I'm very happy that we all agree, because they're always richer and more, let's say, whole and more linked to real life. We don't live in boxes. In real life, it's exactly the same. And if you want, Jasmin, maybe I can give you some examples.
Definitely, yeah. Let's get away from this abstract talking about it, but yeah, go down to the concrete. So please.
Yes, because as you mentioned, I'm a former deputy mayor, and in this case, I was also in this role. I was involved in the 2015 and 16 Informed Cities, but now I'm here in a different role as a social designer. And maybe I can give a concrete example from policymaking and one more from the bottom-up approach in cities. So I think as a policymaker, as a deputy mayor at the time, for me it meant simply working together as departments. It sounds so logical, but it isn't at all, I think. So seeing projects as horizontal projects, approaching them this way. I remember, for example, the development of a blue-green, of a small river into a blue-green park in Genk. And you would say, of course, okay, this is urbanism, this is environment department to take care of this kind of project. But in reality, it was also neighborhood development. It was youth work. It was healthcare. It was tourism, sports, also sustainable mobility. So being aware and to look at the project in a different way, that's the beginning of everything, I think.
But Joke, how do we do that? Because I think we all agree, oh yes, it's important to work across departments, but who gets that done? How do we ensure that, the departments come together?
Yeah. What we did in this case, in developing this blue-green park, was at the very beginning of the project, becoming a team across departments. So what did I do, me as a deputy mayor, and also responsible for participation? And for me, participation is also civil servant participation. And what we did, we organized a bike tour. So this river was covering 5 neighborhoods. So what did we do? We came together with all these departments and the head of these departments and the people involved in the project, and we just did a whole day bike tour. It was like a team building, but this was really like getting to know each other. You work together with 10,000 civil servants, but you don't always know each other. So this is the most simple thing you can do, of course. On the other hand, it's also how you develop your departments and your responsibilities as policymakers. For example, we had a space department and a people department. So this is so large, and it helps because it forces you to think more in an integrated way. For example, I was responsible for transitions, for equality, for participation, for sustainable development. It's all like horizontal approaches. You can't stick into a silo because it's important in different departments. So I think these are like simple things, but really, really important things, bringing people together. And for me, it's the same with Wetopia now, because my political time it's been already a few years. I live now in Marseille. I'm in a complete different environment now, but I also see it with Wetopia because we actively create new alliances, people who never meet, but who have, for me, and this is really core as also an answer to what do you have in common, it's place. And a place can be a street, a square, a neighborhood, but also a whole city. And that's what we try to do. For example, in a project in Marseille, we brought business school students together with prisoners. Of course, we went to the prison for that. And what do they have in common? Their age. They were all youngsters of between 20 and 24. What they also had in common was their city and the energy and knowledge to make a city better, even they are in completely different situations. Or for example,
but when you bring these different groups together, what are the things that go well and what doesn't? Like what maybe also for us now in this conference, what do we need to keep in mind when we bring different people together?
Yeah, as I said, I think putting forward the potential of place and space as a common thing for people to bring them together, that's for me everything. It's all about, I heard Stefan saying like the systemic approach. This is all about system thinking and starting from a potential of place, because this is a neutral concept. We all have in common, we all share, although I see it also in different, when I work in neighborhoods and I develop a development team for the neighborhood. These people share their neighborhood, but for the rest, they never meet. Like a social tenant and an entrepreneur living in the same neighborhood, or an artist, a scientist. So it's just by being aware that this is not a logical connection and just organizing these unlogical connections, I think, these new alliances. So it's also about imagining the impossible possible, I think. And I would say just do it. People like it. Maybe it's a bit strange. You also asked the question, isn't it crazy to put these two topics or projects together? No, it isn't. Nothing is crazy. It's, I think, when you focus on a place or a city or a neighborhood as a common space, I think everyone recognizes it. So,
I'm glad we're on the same page there, but I want you to be even more concrete. So how do we create these places as policymakers, but also maybe as projects? How do we make people then, let's say, go there?
Yeah, I give you one example. The whole summer I worked in Ostende. It's a coastal city in Belgium. And what we did for the Festival of Architecture was we wanted to write the story of a place to better develop this neighborhood for the great challenges of this city, like decolonization, like urban development, and so on. And what we did, I just took my phone and I called a lot of people, like, I want a development team in this city, in this neighborhood of 10 people. And I want, of course, 30% has an immigrant background, so at least three people of these 10 have an immigrant background. I want an entrepreneur, I want an artist. I just called them, we came together 5 times in a viable share under a tree. You have to make it very nice and also an experience for them. And yeah, it's great what comes out of it, but you can also do it. My example of the civil servants with their bike tour, it depends on what you want to do. I give you another example. In Marseille, we work a lot on focusing on matchmaking for solutions. For example, we see young kids who don't have although they live at the sea, they don't have the access to the sea or to swimming. So people can't swim. Youngsters of the northern quarters of Marseille can't swim. At the same time, we see a lot of people with a swimming pool, a private swimming pool. Yeah, it's crazy, of course, but we did it. We brought whole summer young kids from deprived neighborhoods into houses with people with a swimming pool, and they learn to swim. Yeah, it's crazy, I know, but it works. Yeah. So and it's also so nice to do it. Or another example, homeless people are never invited to think about housing, and that's what people here in Marseille did. They connected them with project developers in construction. So it looks crazy, but at the end, bringing people in the same room and at least getting to know each other and understanding each other, and then start the conversation.
It's the opposite of crazy, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the opposite of crazy. Yeah. It's really like resolving problems and seeing new potential. That's my opinion.
Is there something you can tell that definitely doesn't work? You know, we've heard a little bit from OpenHeritage and GreenCharge. Some of the things, you know, as is always the case, didn't go as planned. Have you tried something to bring 2 people or 2 groups of people together, where it was just an approach where you'd say, oh, don't take that?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the people. When you bring, it's all about people. You bring people together, and sometimes expectations are different, or like the old, I call it the activists of the 20th century, who think, okay, we have to protest, we have to come in, we talk about this 15 years, and we again do this. Or people who are very, let's say, open-minded or ready to also listen to other people. So I think that's something very important. But in general, like Hanna said, it's trial and error. It's not a disaster or a catastrophe when it doesn't work. It's not that
don't be afraid,
lives depend on it. It's just by trying, I think.
Okay. I want to ask you one last question. Do you have maybe like 3 or 2 or 4 like key takeaways, key lessons learned you want to share with people to keep in mind, like short and concise?
Yeah, so I think what's not linked to a specific topic is everything involving improving democracy in cities. So integrated democratic practices are really important, I think, whatever the topics are. I already said all roles are important, either for heritage or for mobility. And I mean roles as a politician, a citizen, a civil servant, an entrepreneur. So all roles matter for all kind of topics. topics. But what's also very important for me is to be aware that there is that we have to fight segregation all the time in cities between people, but also between places. Unequal access, I think it's something to bear in mind, no matter what topic. So staying connected, creating more us, creating more we. And then maybe last but not least, but very important for me is, but we all agree on that, I'm sure, that there's so much knowledge and experience and creativity in our local society that we should use it as much as possible. So I would keep it to that, Jasmin.
Very, very good point. Thank you very much. Joka, I want to ask you, as well as Jacqueline and Hanna, one final question. So we're bringing the two of you back. And I want you to maybe make this a 30-second, 1 minute maximum answer, and just some advice for our participants going into this conference who maybe also be a bit hesitant of these two projects and these two topics coming together. What do you think they should keep in mind now going into this day and the next two? Jacqueline, let's start with you.
Yes. Okay. I would say maybe be curious. And if you cannot participate to all, choose the session that you are less interested in. And then you will learn the most, I think. And maybe also share. You have the chat. You can share experience with other participants on the chat. Share. I always say share. And I am inspired by joke. I would say be crazy. Don't be shy, be crazy. Yeah.
Perfect. That was a good response. Hanna, what would you tell participants?
Oh, I would say free your mind and enjoy. So, just go into the blank. And also, I think that's appreciate other people's work. So so appreciate that might be different from what you do, but it's just as good. So that's I think it's an attitude thing, I would say.
Yes, perfect. And then, Joka, final word from you. What would you tell participants?
Yeah, I would also say be curious, have fun, use the occasion of the forum, see it as an exercise, and so ask what you can learn from other fields, and explore this kind of new alliance and come up with new ideas who don't fit in a box.
Yes, definitely. Even though two of you are just thinking are currently in boxes, but that is not in your heads, but only right now on our screen. But I think all three of you put this very well. I hope our participants, you take this to heart and join as many sessions as you can, maybe the ones you're least interested in. I think this was a great way to finish this opening sessions with these inspiring words. Ladies, I want to thank you all for being with me here in our opening. To everyone watching, so we have wonderful sessions planned for you. Next one up is going to be the new European Bauhaus initiative. If you don't know what this is, you can find out right now. It will be moderated by our very own Cristina Grazzello, and she will be joined by wonderful speakers. I will be with you again tomorrow and for the closing on Thursday. You now have a 50-minute break, so enjoy that, but please be back on time. I'm excited. We're all excited to have you with us. The next 3 days are going to be so much fun. So welcome to Informed Cities.